Welcome to Warblock. Today we're looking at the Anglophone Crisis. This is one of the games in my attempts to get a bit of everything. As you can see, my list is getting quite long, and so there's that. Part and parcel of developing this, which is the forums, if I choose care to it's basically a list from Wikipedia. So there we have now the Anglophone Crisis. Next I'll be doing something on the Iraqi-Kurdish conflict, etc., etc. Because they always haven't been done, so there's nothing on the Kassai clashes. So some of these are going to be fairly weak. The Pool War. I just want to sort of broach each of these so we've got something as a starting point for the learning process, so to speak, of which I'll be getting on a little bit more about that in another video actually. But anyway, so essentially, in a nutshell, there's a lot of history here from when the areas were divided between the French and the English colonies, speaking French and English respectively. Essentially, the South Cameroons was a region, and it sort of became part of Cameroon in like 1961. But they didn't feel that they were being treated fairly by the sort of French-speaking government, and sort of fairly recently when the Francophones passed some laws, or made some government appointees, they sort of got a bit angry and started to protest. There was basically some appointments of Francophone judges in their Anglophone regions, and lawyers and teachers. The lawyer and teachers trade union started to protest, and they protested in 3 core places to start off with, as we've got here. So there's the protests in Bamenda. There's some protests there in Biri, and there's some protests there in Limbi. So that's where we start. So we've got the protests going on now. The protests start on the 6th of October, and makes you wonder really, in the light of the French Parisian Yellow Jackets protests, which seem to be going on forever. But this went on for a while, and the government deployed security forces to actually crack down on protesters. They were attacked with tear gas and was generally assaulted by soldiers, and throughout sort of November 2016, thousands of teachers started to go on strikes. Essentially, it continues to be sort of more protests and riots and things like that up until September 2017. So the thing is, we've got a compressed timeline. That's what I'm trying to get to here, really, in a slightly warped, because in September 17, the Ambazonia Governing Council formally deployed the Amazonian Defence Forces. So basically, they create some insurgents. So there we have these little guys suddenly start appearing. The thing is, it's almost an entire year after these protests, and the game basically ends around about the 1st of October. So if you look at the time scale, if these riots start in the start on the 6th of October 16 and the game finishes on the 1st of October 17, that would give you a year. But the thing is, it doesn't work like that. So we're doing the first 12 months sort of like an accelerated pace, and then we sort of slow in. But the thing is, it gives you the breakdown of the flow of events, even if the timescale is sort of warped. And I'm happy with that, because we're not trying to sort of model it exactly. So, I mean, if you play it, you'll sort of figure it out. But so for example, we could say we're in the position of the riots, sort of on the I don't know, something like the 1st of September 17. The thing is, they start in these places, and it's worth starting a scenario in these places as opposed to trying to model where they were on that day. You could sort of tentatively think of it like that. But their objective, basically, they declare this part, which is the South Cameroon, which is the region, they actually call it Ambazonia, and it almost sounds comical. To be quite honest, you sort of think, hang on, that sounds a bit sort of like they made it up. But the thing is, it's not actually, in the sense that they didn't think, oh, let's think of a really sort of like African nation. What we're going to call our new, coup d'etat, civil war, self-declared nation, Ambazonia. Essentially, let me just find out. The name Ambazonia is taken from the Ambas Bay and the Ambozis, the local name of the mouth of the Wari River. So presumably that's sort of all this stuff down here, either that or probably this stuff here. There's no sort of immediate map, but I think this is probably quite a lot larger. So it does have some sort of local geographic meaning and significance, but basically they try to take out this place. And so you need to look at a map of Cameroon. This is sort of Cameroon proper, so to speak, and this is the sort of regional Ambazonia, which is more like two. There's a little borderline there or something like that. This is like two, I think, or maybe even three sort of sub-regions of Cameroon. I'm not sure whether or not anyone has given Ambazonia international recognition, but it does actually state that people have died in the fighting, and basically 14,000 people in America, they protested, in support. It says, at this point, the crisis began to attract international responses. More than 13,000 Anglophone Cameroonians living in Maryland protested against the Cameroonian government crackdown. Presumably that's living in Maryland, United States. On June the 27th, the United States congressmen filed a petition with the United States Secretary of State to call for the government of Cameroon to immediately show concern and solve the ongoing crisis. The United States condemned the loss of life and brutality against Anglophone protesters. It's all quite interesting, really, when you consider, other places that, I'd never heard of this. And that's one of the reasons that, that I quite like about, the whole war blog thing. You can look at these things, analyse them, and put a bit of weight on the bones, meat on the bones, so to speak. Anyway, we'll have a quick play of it. Now, what I've done here is slightly different to how I normally do it, and I don't think it's actually really massively sort of important or significant, but these protesters are now protesting, and there's nothing to stop them. So they're protesting. So if we end the turn, presumably now we've gone down 2 in there and 1 in there. So we're actually managing to take these places. But the thing is, because it's going to take so long to take them, and the Cameroon Union player doesn't have any forces at the moment, we can sort of let them do that on the turn that what we can imply then is, wow, you know, we've got all these protesters, you better do something about it. So now we've mobilised some, you know, riot police. So presumably there are sort of normal police in there, but you know, obviously they're losing control of these two places. So I've mobilised. This is how I'm sort of, you know, portraying these types of things, as opposed to these just being regular police. They're not military police, but they're not just regular police. You know, I mean, if there wasn't any resistance here, then presumably they would just take it straight away. But the protests have started. They've started to take these places here, as we've sort of covered. This is Bamenda. Let me just check the names again. Bamenda, Bui and Limbi. So there's Bui and there's Limbi. I wonder why it was small. It's another thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So they're protesting in these places. But now the police are involved. But we can now. The whole point. There are some of these places are specific, and for example, they later on they blow up a checkpoint at Besson Banga. But basically, the other places. Oh, I haven't done that one. What I did with the other places. This one. That shouldn't be there. It should be there. That's over the border. So, well, actually, I think they might attack it later. Anyway, it doesn't matter, so to speak. You've got to take this province. So you can go and protest in any of these. So they can protest there. These guys can probably protest in one if they can get there. Move one. You can stay there. So there's some protesters coming in from Cameroon. So I've sort of done that on purpose as well. So, bit by bit, they're contending Bamenda there. So the Cameroon police don't like that. And they've got some movement left. And they've got their riot defences up. I'm going to do with 2 because I think we should have like 7 to 1 no matter what. There's 2 of them. Some exchange. Another exchange. Okay, they're going to be that tough. Right, so they're going to stick in there. They're going to start to protest in 1. So we're now trying to take all of these different places. Probably not balanced it properly, but let's have another go at this. Okay, so we push them back. So we can get back into there and restore order. Now, I don't think the protesters will have as easy a chance of knocking the police out. It's asymmetric how it works. If the police attack, they get to defend on 1, but when they attack the police, I think they get like a 0.1 or something. They're not on a 0. They can't attack other things, but if they're fighting police, they get like a 0.1. So you're always going to be at like a 1 to 4. They're not really going to have much chance. But I think we've really got to start doing something down here as well. Maybe something over here. Let's see if we can just push them back. So we've eliminated one. So presumably we killed a few people, but they sort of ran off. So we've managed to take control of this, but there's still a lot more going on over here. We've got more police now. So they're all busy rioting. Whoops. I lost them both. That's one of the things that's not quite right with the game, actually. I lost one, but they both went. They either both went or one of them should have stayed. Oh, there's some sort of mix-up anyway. Not a big problem. It is a bit of a fact if you're trying to be a bit serious about it, but anyway. So, this is probably more serious because they've taken quite a bit. Okay, so we push them out. Send these guys down here. I can probably push him back here now. Okay, so we push them back. Let's try and get these guys out. DR. Okay. Well, maybe they don't want to hang around there. We can start protesting in the Canby. And maybe double up in there. Okay. Well, let's push them out if we can. An exchange. It wasn't good. Let's get it to 1. I'm going to try and get these places back, so he's going to go into Luss. I'm going to move up here and try and get to really get on the road there. They're going to recover. Okay, so they've been pushed about a bit, so presumably they're not very happy with all of that. Oh no, we started off with Canberra, I didn't realise that was a place. Now that there's some more police, that's what we needed. Oh, he's got the why? Oh dear. Okay, let's move into Limby first. So Have an exchange. At least I did that because at least we'll be able to sort of sit in there and take it back. Let's knock these guys out of the way. So we've got some rioting, well, we've got some action going on outside of a city. Trying to get them before they get to Manfu. All we do is push them further towards it, but they should be depressed 6, it's not good. But these units are sort of depressed 1, they're depressed 3. He's lost. But they're not too far off getting actually capturing a seat of power. So it's not the Saw Revolution, but following the Saw Revolution, when the People's Democratic Republic, whatever it was, of Afghanistan contest parts of Afghanistan, that they win by default because there's no one there. I mean, they could win this by default because there's no one to challenge them. So see how that works. The police need to start doing things. No, it's the Ambazonian turn. Okay, let's see if we can get to Manfi. Okay, so they're busy. They're going to sit there and just do what they do. They've still got quite a long way, actually. It's not -1. They've got to get another 6 turns before they get that. So there's lots of protests and lots of police at the moment. And we've got some new police units here. Well, we're going to get that next turn. So we really need to send something south. I think we shouldn't really have sent these that way. Let's send them all this way, because we can divert some over here. We should rout these this turn, and if they're on depression 6, eliminate them. Yeah. Okay, that's starting to clean up these rioters. But they didn't like that, did they, the rioters? Because now they've formed an irregular unit here. So this is the whole point of the escalation of, what we're talking about. So we've gone forward a year now. And so what's happening now is over the period of just a month, and there's some more there. And some more down here. So, the Ambazonian turn. Well, we can help him there. We can take taking a gale, and let's do our first offensive action against these police units in wherever it is they're in. 5-1 DE. We've pushed them out of Lecambri, so now we've got the sort of civil war proper. And this is one thing that I think is key about how Warblog works. I don't think it's brilliant in the sense that it's comprehensive or, in depth, but you get a basic, and I feel from my point of view, it's key really into understanding modern warfare and conflict. You get that key, everyone can understand protests, and that's what's happening here. They're protesting. This is a protest by lawyers and teachers union. And of all things, if you can imagine those sorts of people protesting, and then they basically declare the Ambazonian Defence Forces as an armed force to fight the corrupt Cameroonian government. And then they've got their police units here, you see, they're infantry units. And so, that's the genesis of, not all war, because obviously the symmetric war has two government forces, but of a sort of, and when you think about that and consider it, you can only arrive at the sort of conclusion that the governments will take all forms of civil disobedience very seriously, and the fact that they don't get anywhere isn't necessarily indicative of the fact that it couldn't have, or the will in the state is not such that it could have. You could say, well, the reason that these have become irregular units is as indicative of the inability of the Cameroonian government to stop that happening, because it's an African state. They can probably get firearms quite easily. It's difficult to manage, probably in the more remote regions like the South Cameroons. It's a more volatile region, in short, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the will is any less than, say, the will of the French people in Paris at the moment, who don't have the access to guns and probably aren't as volatile in that sense. But the emotions are probably higher in Paris than they are here, where they just sort of probably just waltzed into, what they're doing here. I'm not saying they saw it any less lightheartedly, but the thing is, you've got to. I don't think there's any doubt that the French government are aware of the significance of that sort of stuff, and I think that people have already died in the French, riots. I look, there's a road that goes nowhere. We'll have to sort that one out. But what we're doing, more blog here, is looking at the genesis of that process. And obviously after the creation of irregulars, you create proper formations, but irregulars are pretty much par for the course. So we'll do a couple more turns, I think. So what have we got? We're just rioting here. We've done that, done that. So really, we want to sort of relax there. Okay, so we've got our military units in play now. Let's see if we can quell this riot, because they're only protesters, it's not big, so with a bit of luck. And that's not what I call a bit of luck. I'm just glad they didn't retreat into the sea. Because they can't, but at least we took the enemy back. It won't let it retreat to the sea, or theoretically, but because it's such a sort of quite often don't get an AR next to a C, it wouldn't have surprised me. I don't want to dwell on that, because obviously it didn't, because that would have been one of these three would have been the proper hexes to retreat to if the rules weren't in there to not allow them to go into sea, because none of these are in the zone of control. So it said, no, these are not optional, so we've got to go into this or this, can't go into that. So it was either this, so the rules are working, or just me being always worried about those things. So that wasn't good, but, well, the thing is, the armed forces will have a much better chance, because they'll get 7-to-1 odds. So we've got to go and deal with, let's send another one this way. Okay. Well, interesting. We don't want to send the police towards these irregulars. We don't need to be there anymore, so we should maybe go this way. Whoops, there's the regulars in there, aren't there? Okay, let's fight the police. Not with the protesters though, just the irregulars. Should be 2 to 1. In exchange, there's again over here, another 2 to 1. Another exchange and another 12. You're not doing anything there. We've got these guys here, I think they've just appeared. Let's go and attack Bamenda. 3 to 1. A similarly crappy result. Okay, I will leave it at that because I've done 30 minutes. I don't want to spend too long on this. I think you get the point. And there's still a lot more troops to come on. Later on we get some insurgent units who carry out things like the assault on Ambazonia gang base. They also attack, I think, Mabuda. Or I think Basufasan. But essentially it gets more and more volatile. I've only got up to sort of 1st of October 2017. The idea of looking at the later events, say in a separate scenario. This one just covers the opening of the of this sort of the situation in the sort of the warped sense that timeline that I sort of already mentioned. So yeah, I hope you enjoy that, and I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.